Dear ones, today we wish to speak with you about knowing and belief. As you continue to progress upon your path of living through your heart, the distinction will become clearer and also more important to you. Quite simply, belief is something that comes from without. A belief is something that we acquire via external sources. We are never born believing anything. Belief generally comes from another paradigm or dogmatic structure and is usually something that is thrust upon you. Belief is something that requires the validation of the rational mind, the ego, and people who are external. Much like a teacher or a religious figure will require you to repeat back to them the belief, they will also in many cases test your belief, so to speak, to prove to them that you are parroting back to them that which they have taught you to believe. A belief is something that is also changeable or discardable, as it generally comes from without, and is therefore subject to the whims of societal structures and what is currently deemed acceptable by those structures. In many cases, beliefs are built with hidden agendas to keep a specific group locked in the illusions of separation, powerlessness, lack, or in a position of having to require upon another group for that which they need to survive or feel approved of or worthy of what another group has. Belief is based upon external perception that is usually thrust upon one group by another that they perceive to be more powerful. Belief is often loud, it is often insecure, it is often fear-based, and it is almost never something that comes directly from the wisdom of the heart. Knowing is quiet, knowing is true, knowing is gentle and benevolent and never requires validation from an external source. Knowing is something that blossoms and unfolds and flowers from within. Knowing is universal, it is eternal, it is of love and is born of the heart. Knowing is something that is never questioned because it resonates also on a physical level that feels absolute and aligned. Knowing is when we are aligned with the infinite intelligence of our higher selves, our guides, our source. Knowing comes from a place that is free from ego or judgment. Knowing is the aha moment of discovery, of revelation, a flash of brilliance or inspiration. Knowing is divine. Knowing never asks or requires that you do or choose or be anything that is in opposition to who you naturally are. For who you naturally are is a divine, eternal, sovereign being, and knowing is lovingly in support of that. When you know, you know. How do you know? You just know. You feel it, it is unmistakable. Belief generally causes conflict or aggression or insecurity, and further supports the illusion that we are separate from one another. Take yourselves back to a time when you just knew something. You knew that a relationship was over, you knew that you were going to get the job or lose the job, you knew that someone was not being honest or that someone needed your help. You knew who the person was on the other end of the phone before you even picked it up. Those moments of knowing always served to bring you to something greater or better or more positive. Those moments of knowing always served to support your alignment with your true nature. Now reflect back on a time of disagreement or conflict or confusion. We will say that almost always the underlying reason for this was because of a difference of beliefs. Think of a time when you did something that made you feel sad or awful or empty or lesser than your divine self. Can you not see that it was because of a false belief that you took this action? That which comes from love and compassion will never require you to do something that makes you feel small, weak, or unempowered. The beauty of belief is that within the belief there is always a lesson that will take you to a knowing which will further empower you. The wonderful thing about beliefs is that they are changeable and can be discarded with the same ease with which they were acquired. The beauty and perfection of knowing is that it only requires you to acknowledge that it has arisen within you, and then to follow the action that you are inspired to take from that knowing. Knowing is patient and eternal and will continue to persist within you until you acknowledge it. Not because it requires your validation, but because it has lovingly been given to you to allow you to continue up the spiral of your evolution. As you continue to progress upon your heart-centered path, we know that you will begin to see that ultimately beliefs are meaningless and irrelevant to your path. Once they have taught you the lesson you need to know, they will crumble before your eyes and they will be instantly replaced by a knowing that will resonate with the core of who you are. The only thing, dear ones, that keeps a belief intact in your physical now is your insistence in continuing to buy into it. That is funny phrase, buying into a belief. For it illustrates that most often, in order for you to accept a belief as true, you must discard or quiet a part of your true self or trade your personal power to accept that belief. Your personal power can never be taken from you, it can only be given away by you. A knowing will never ask you to diminish your greatness, it will only serve to magnify the powerful divine being that you are. Judge not yourself or others for their beliefs. Just know that we believe what we believe because it is there to teach us what we need to know to allow the knowing to eventually surface. Once the knowing is embraced, the belief will vanish.